Okay, welcome everybody to our Fall into Reading PitchFest 2023. I'm Susan Macbeth, the founder and owner of Adventures by the Book, and I'd like to welcome all of our 16 authors, our staff, and 300 readers, book clubs, librarians who are joining us today. We're very excited. We're going to have a fast-paced, fun event where you get to hear about 16 books that we know you will want to add to your reading list. And all of these authors are Novel Network authors, which means they are available for you to visit with your book clubs, your reading groups, your libraries. So start taking notes on the cheat sheet we sent you so you can make a notation of which ones you want to add next to your reading list. So a couple of upcoming things that I wanted to talk about is you guys are the first to hear because we just took it live today. Superbook pre-sales today are on the calendar. And I think Karen White's going to be one of our authors along with her other Team W members, Lauren Willig and Beatrice Williams. We're excited about that. We'll have 20 authors. We have half the team confirmed, and they are on our website. The other 10 are a surprise. They're in the works, but we wanted to offer pre-sales because so many of you are asking about it. And because we've had such an amazing response in previous years, I think last year we had people coming from 8 different US states to the event. We decided to hold it on President's Day weekend next year, so you could come to San Diego in February, and who doesn't want to leave the cold and rainy places where you are and come to San Diego in February, and you can spend a weekend here, and we'll have all kinds of fun activities for you as well as Superbook. So tickets on sale, early bird pricing is to the first 50 people who sign up, so go to our website soon, and we'll see you there. Let's see, what other notes do I have to, we're going to do some giveaways at the end. And thank you to our authors who generously gave a copy of your book to do that. So each author has 4 minutes. I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then they have 4 minutes to take it away. You guys can take notes. You can ask questions in the chat box. And I'm going to change my view to speaker view now so I can see who will be talking. And we're going to go alphabetically, follow along in the cheat sheet for your easy convenience. So we're going to start with Jamie Beck. If I can ask all the authors to mute themselves for the time being, and Jamie, except you because you're up first. Jamie Beck's realistic and heartwarming stories have sold more than 3 million copies. She is a 2-time Booksellers Best Award finalist and a National Reader's Choice Award winner. Congratulations on that, Jamie. Her new novel, The Beauty of Rain, follows 2 devoted sisters at a tragic breaking point who discover the beautiful and painful truths of being alive. You have 4 minutes to hear what Jamie has to say. Go.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be part of this tonight and to talk about this book. This is my 19th book, and I'm most proud of this one, and not just because I'm here talking about it tonight. The story behind this book is that it's very personal to me, and the inspiration for the themes in the story actually grew out of some horrible health circumstances I went through for about 1.5 years that culminated in an emergency surgery and a 9-day recovery in the hospital. So as we often hear, when you're confronted with your mortality, it really forces some transformations. And for me, that time was spent reevaluating what I was doing, who I was doing it with, all the choices I was making, and whether or not those choices were really based on what brings me joy and satisfaction, or what other people expect, or my community, the pressure you feel in your community to do certain things and so forth. So I took all of that energy that came out of that self-evaluation and I poured it into this book. So with that sort of as a background of how this story came to be, I'll just read the back jacket to give you an idea of what the plot is actually about. Winning the lottery changed Amy Walsh's life, but the cost was greater than she could bear. In the aftermath, she struggles to find joy and purpose. Only one thing feels certain now: she will never spend 1 cent of the prize money on herself. Worried, her older sister, Kristen DeMarco, invites Amy to live with her family while she heals. Unfortunately, this arrangement leads to trouble for Kristen. Divided focus affects her career, her daughter prefers Amy to her, and Amy's unsolicited opinions provoke tension between Kristen and her husband. Meanwhile, Amy is making drastic plans of her own, which include giving away all her money. But first, she must convince Kristen not to squander her most valuable asset, time with her family. As the sisters help each other reimagine their futures, life's unpredictability sends them to surprising places that test their love and resilience. Will they learn to live in the now before it's too late? So that's the plot. It's basically a sister story. It sounds heavy. I do have to say that I want to warn some readers that there are some trigger warnings with this book, with suicidal ideation and prescription drug abuse, because I don't want anyone who's not prepared to confront those issues and be sorry. But even though it sounds like a little bit of a heavy read, it's really an uplifting message. And I've been really heartened by reader letters I've received and reviews from readers who are saying things like, this is a book that will forever change me. It touched me in a way I didn't know it would. It's, a full out emotional roller coaster. And it reminds us that there's hope and meaning in life, even during our darkest days. So I don't want people to be scared off by these somewhat heavier topics, but it was really a book that just poured out of me. And I'm trying to think what else might be relevant to you all. But it's set here where I live in Connecticut. And I don't know. I guess that's really, I want to keep it short. I know we're on a time limit, so I'll keep it short and sweet. And I think it raises a lot of interesting questions for a book group discussion. So I think it's perfect for any book group.
Thank you, Jamie. And I love the cover and the title, The Beauty
Thank
of
you. I love the cover too.
Yeah, they did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Florence Kraut. Florence Rice Kraut has published personal essays for the New York Times, and her fiction has appeared in journals such as the Evening Street Press, SN Review, the Westchester Review, and others. Her second novel, Street Corner Dreams, is a suspenseful family saga, love story, and gangster tale wrapped into one great book club read. Welcome, Jamie. Welcome. I'm looking at Jamie's screen. Welcome, Florence.
Hi, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here to talk to you about my second novel, Street Corner Dreams, which, as you heard, is a family saga, love story, and gangster tale. The seed of this book came from my own family history. My grandparents immigrated to Brooklyn at the beginning of the 20th century and had 13 children, my future aunts and uncles. They grew up learning to avoid the gangs, the Jewish, Italian, Irish gangs who demanded protection money from the local shopkeepers and enticed young men, promising them a fast way out of poverty. In many immigrant histories, there are shameful secrets of family members who were in Murder Incorporated or the Mafia, which ran the underworld in Brooklyn. Maybe you know such a hidden story. In fact, I do. My mother's cousin was a part of this underworld. He was a card shark who ran slot machines and was murdered in a gang war in 1930. His story was all over the newspapers. The Brooklyn Eagle reported how his mother disowned him and refused his body. The New York Post told how his grieving father retrieved the body, reburied him in a Jewish cemetery, and then sat shiva to mourn him. This story intrigued me. I wondered what went on in their parlor as they argued, and how did they resolve their disagreement? That actual answer is lost to history. But I'm a social worker who understands family dynamics and a writer with research skills and imagination. As I wrote my second historical novel, I pictured my characters living through Prohibition, the First World War, the deadly Spanish flu pandemic, and the Great Depression. In Street Corner Dreams, Golda comes to America just before World War I. She's yearning for independence. But what should she do when her beloved sister dies giving birth to a son? Golda gives up her dreams and marries her brother-in-law, Ben, so she can help raise the baby, Morty. At first, the family thrives. Golda becomes a seamstress, Ben grows his repair business, and Morty, with dreams to become an engineer, falls passionately in love with Anna, a beautiful Italian girl whose family has ties to the mafia. Then comes the Depression. Ben, faced with financial ruin, makes a foolish and dangerous life-altering choice. Morty tries to save his father with help from a gangster friend, but his decision separates him from his family and his beloved Anna and threatens his freedom and his very life. Will he ever find a safe way back? Or has his involvement with the gang sealed his fate? Street Corner Dreams is an exploration of a timeless question for all of us. How much do we owe the people that have sacrificed for and shaped us? And does that debt outweigh what we owe ourselves and our own hopes and dreams for a better life? My first novel, How to Make a Life, was a popular book club selection and library event book. And I visited with almost 100 clubs and libraries across the US and in Canada as well. The reaction of early readers to Street Corner Dreams so far tells me that you will love this suspenseful page-turner, love story, and gangster tale. And it's all wrapped into one great book club read. Thank you.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Florence. Next up, we have Madeline Martin, who is a New York Times and international best-selling author of historical fiction and historical romance. The Keeper of Hidden Books is a heartwarming story about the power of books to bring us together. I love that. Inspired by the true story of the underground library in World War II, Warsaw. Welcome, Madeline.
Thank you so much, Susan. And thank you guys, everyone, for being here. And thank you also to the authors, too, because I get super excited about all the books that everyone's talking about. I know my TBR list always gets really long watching this as well. So I wrote The Keeper of Hidden Books, checking the time really quick to make sure that I don't go over. My inspiration for The Keeper of Hidden Books really was what happened in Poland during World War II. Everybody knows that's kind of where the war started. But not everybody knows all of the details that really happened and how brave the Poles were as they fought back. So The Keeper of Hidden Books spans from September 1939 all the way through May 1945. And there's a specific reason for that exact month. And was really inspired by these incredible journals that I found by Warsaw's public librarians as they were outlining all their detailed information about what they did to save books and to open up secret libraries during the Nazi occupation. It really was just so incredible. And sort of on that vein, you know, I have people who are always saying, oh, why do you always write books about books? Well, I'm a reader. I love books. I say I've always been a reader, but apparently my mom told me that they used to have to pay me a penny a page when I was little, but that doesn't count. So I just go with I've always been a reader. And so for me, writing about books, it really just seems to make sense because my characters are readers as well. So on that note, Sophia is the main character. She is a little bit rebellious, just given the history of Poland and how long they fought for freedom. And so I thought, what wonderful way for her to be able to really show her rebelliousness than by reading books that Hitler is banning. So I actually have, it's initially called an anti-Hitler book club. It's a better name later on, I promise. And they are reading books that have been banned by Hitler. And each one of these books really kind of peels back a layer of Sophia's life and shows her a new perspective of what's going on around her that she never would have known before. I did extensive research, not just in reading all of those books that she reads, but I read over 100 nonfiction books to get all the information I wanted to for this. I went to Poland for 2 weeks with my mom. We had the most amazing tour guide who could take a car that was this big and parallel park it into a spot this big. And she also, for all of our tours that she did, she never once stopped talking. And I mean that in the best way. She just was a font of knowledge and I just drank all of it up. And let me see, I'm just keeping an eye on the time. So one of the really amazing things about this book also is that it was released on August 1st, and August 1st is a really significant day in Warsaw. That's when the Warsaw Uprising began. And really that was after 5 years, almost 5 years of persecution in the Nazi occupation. The Poles were finally able to rise up and fight back. So to this day in Poland on August 1st at 5 p.m., which was W hour, the entire city goes completely silent except for all the alarms and sirens that blare in honor of the men and women who fought for Poland's freedom. And I wanted to close with this quote that is from the book. There was power in literature, brilliant and undeniable. Books inspired free thought and empathy, an overall understanding and acceptance of everyone. In the pages of the books that were burned and banned and ripped apart for pulping, Zulfia had found herself. These were the parts of her that were human and strong and loving, parts that understood lives she had never led. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. And what a great quote to end on. I mean, I think, you know, the power of the reason we're all here is because books connect us. So I think it's a, a magical thing you've done. Next up, we have Sarah McCoy, who wasn't able to join us. So she sent in a recording, which is going to take us just a minute to queue up. If I can ask Debbie to do that now, please. I'm not getting any sound, Debbie. Debbie, try unmuting yourself to see if that helps, because I'm still not getting any sound.
Of Mystique Island, and I'm so happy to be here for the Adventures by the Book Fall into Reading. Thank you for having me, and I am so sorry that I am having to pre-record this and give it to you because I am currently on the road to my parents' house up in the Northern Virginia area for a family reunion that we do once a year. And it just so happens that it all came together that I agreed to do this. I was so excited. And at the same time, I had a family reunion, and you all know how that is. It's sort of the close of the summer, beginning of fall. We all get together and say, okay, let's make sure we're all, you know, breathing and happy and have a good time together and reconnect and have fellowship and eat a heap load of crabs from Chesapeake Bay area. That is sort of my favorite part of sitting down at the big table with the newspaper and the mallets, and I get to take out all your stress if you have any with family members, and we just hash it all out, and we do it once a year. So that's where I'm at, but I am so grateful to our hosts, Susan and Debbie, for allowing me to be here to talk about my book with you. So that's what I'm going to do. First off, choose your own fall adventure. How much fun is that? Did you all read those books growing up where you could choose your own adventure and you would jump around? Those are some of my favorites, but inevitably I would read it one way. Did you do this? And then jump to the end and then back up and say, well, what if I did it a different way? And then I did it a different way, and then I would jump around. And so so that's why I have kind of all of my books stacked here, because I thought, well, if it's choose your own adventure, I should at least hint that there are other adventures to be had. So here are all my books, and the one I'm going to talk about today is the newest, Mystique Island. And I'm also giving away this as a prize to one of you. So you could have this in your hand very soon. It's a paperback, and it's got the book club guide in the back. It's also available online along with book club activities on my website, www.sarahmccoy.com. So all of that, one of you is going to get. So the rest of you, pre-order, or I guess it's not pre-orders anymore, order your books, and they will all come for your book club. And there's lots of fun stuff. There's recipes online for you to pull and have a big sort of Mystique Island party in your house with your friends. So Mystique Island, first off, let me talk about fall. I love fall. October is it is my favorite month of the year. I love Octobers. I am an Anne of Green Gables fan. Some of you might know this. So October is just very special and magical to me. And so is all of fall. And I think that fall is particularly perfect for historical fiction because we've all just come off of summer where it's all whimsical and dreamy and romance, and we read all these really fun sort of frothy things that make us feel really good and like the ocean, and but we also want something that's grounded in realism and where we're pushing towards something that we're learning. So Mystique Island is historical fiction, and it is based on a real island and its real inhabitants, and 3 of the main sections of it are told from, inspired loosely by 3 real people who lived on the island. And it's Willie Mae, a mother, and her 2 daughters, Hilly and Joanne. And so that's how the book is broken down, is mother and 2 daughters. So clearly it's a story about family, and it's a story about mothers and daughters, and it's a story about discovery and finding your own path and your own way and making mistakes and loving each other through it all, and not knowing what you want in a moment, but knowing that together somehow you're going to figure it out and move forward, and building things together and making mistakes and loving each other. That's what this book is about. It's about family on an island and all the goodness of the rich history of this island, all the scandal of this island. And again, it is a real island. You can Google it and you'll see that it is privately owned by aristocrats who made it their private sort of luxury island to come and do as they wish. Princess Margaret had a house there, and she is featured in the book. Mick Jagger as well has a house there and is featured in the book. So they're all, again, real life people, loosely inspired. You'll learn something and you'll have fun and you'll maybe cry a little, but you'll come away with a knowledge. And I think that's what fall adventures are all about, is coming away with new knowledge that you can take into school. Maybe that's from I'm the daughter of a Puerto Rican school teacher, career school teacher, 35 almost something years, more than that. So that's the kind of reading that I want in my fall, is
And thank you, Sarah. We wish you could be here with us, and we can send the full recording to anyone who's interested. After the event, we'll be sending a thank you with all the links to all our authors' websites and information as well. So thank you, Sarah. We missed you. She's darling. She's wonderful. You will love her if you invite her to your book club. So next up, we have Laura Morelli. And Laura holds a PhD in art history from Yale University. She's an award-winning USA Today and Publishers Weekly best-selling historical novelist. She's the author of the popular guidebook series that includes Made in Italy. Her new novel, The Last Masterpiece, follows 2 women, a German photographer and an American stenographer, as they hunt for priceless masterpieces looted from the Florentine art collections. Amazing. Can't wait to hear more. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Susan. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for this wonderful invitation. I'm so excited to be here and tell you about my latest release, which is called The Last Masterpiece. As Susan mentioned, The Last Masterpiece is about 2 women on opposite sides of World War II. And the book takes us on a heart-pumping adventure up the Italian peninsula during an 18-month period between 1943 and 45. I'm sure many of you have visited Florence, Italy before. If you did, I'm sure you visited the Uffizi galleries. And maybe you also visited the beautiful art collections at the Accademia where Michelangelo's David is, or the Pitti Palace, or the Bargello, or the many dozens of art museums in Florence. And you know, Florence was the cradle of the Renaissance. It's incredibly rich in the history of art. It's an art historian's paradise, at least I consider it. So there are two women who are the focus of our story in the last masterpiece. On the one hand, we have a German woman named Eva Brunner. And at the beginning of the story, we find Eva in the salt mines at Altaussee in Austria. And this is a place where the Nazis would come to store some 6,500 works of art from across Europe, things like huge sculptures by Michelangelo and priceless paintings under the earth for safekeeping. Eva's father is the director of the operations of the mine, and his daughter is taking pictures. But soon enough, Eva finds herself called to Florence for a photography project. Well, on the other side of the ocean, we have Josephine Evans, who is a humble typist at the Yale Art Gallery, a place where I spent a lot of time. And she decides to sign up for the Women's Army Corps. Now, as a WAC, as they were called back then, they did all kinds of jobs like stenography. They sorted letters, they cooked apple pies, they did all kinds of things like plugs in the great switchboards. They followed right behind the front lines, and they were the first American women to be fully embedded with American troops overseas during this period. And they were the first American female soldiers on Italian soil when they landed in 1943. General Douglas MacArthur called the WACs my best soldiers. He said they were more disciplined than his men, and that they worked harder, and that they were more serious about their work. And so I just adored researching the WACs and reading their firsthand testimonies. Well, what drew me to this story is that Italy was a very complicated place during World War II. If you remember your history books, Italy was allied with Hitler at the beginning of the war, and then they switched sides in September of 1943. And suddenly all those Germans who were in their cities were no longer frenemies, let's say, but they were outright enemies instead. And so, you know, the chance to look at two women on either side of this conflict and look at the same set of historical circumstances through the lens of two women working to find out what happened to several hundred looted works of art was a very exciting topic for me as an art historian. I'm still passionate about art history after studying and teaching it for 30 years. I think it's the most fascinating topic in the world. It forms the basis of all my novels, and I'm really I hope you'll take a look at The Last Masterpiece and consider it for your book club. I have a lot of behind the scenes stuff on my website at lauramorelli.com/masterpiece. So go there and take a look. I'm also running a giveaway right now at lauramorelli.com/giveaway23. So good luck, and as they say in Italy, buona lettura, happy reading.
Great, lots of juicy stuff to look forward to. Thank you, Laura. I want to address a couple of things before we go on to Kitty Morris's. First of all, if you're in the San Diego area or want to travel here, Laura's going to be appearing in San Diego. We're doing a luncheon with her in the fall at the Southwestern Yacht Club, and you don't want to miss that. So we hope to see some of you there. Somebody, I think it was Keith, asked a question about getting signed copies of the books. Thank you for the reminder, Keith. Is you can order any of the copies of the books from any of our authors on our website, adventuresbythebook.com. Sarah, if you could type in the link on there. And most of our authors sent us signed book plates, or we have signed copies available. So yes, the answer to your question is yes. And we'd love to see your book orders come in. Thank you. Next up is Kitty Morse, who also, if you're in the San Diego area, we're doing an event for her actually this weekend. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have announced it because it's sold out, but we do a series called Inside the Author's Studio, where we actually go to the author's home, have an amazing event. So it's going to be fun. but I can't wait for you to hear about her book. She is the author of 10 cookbooks, I think probably more than that actually, including a memoir with recipes, mint tea and minarets, a banquet of Moroccan memories. And some of you may have heard about our Moroccan adventure by the book that happened right before COVID. It was an amazing experience with Kitty. Her new book, Bittersweet, a wartime journal and heirloom recipes from occupied France. Your cheat sheet says it's paperback, but it actually is hardcover and it's beautiful. It's part Holocaust history, part memoir, part cookbook, features recipes from Kitty's Alsatian ancestors, and is based upon original family documents and photographs chronicling living in Alsace during the Nazi occupation in World War II. Welcome, Kitty. And don't forget to unmute yourself, Kitty. Okay.
How's that?
There we go. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you, Susan, for this introduction. What a great event. Susan, you're brilliant. Susan is brilliant, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. And yes, this is my 11th cookbook, though it's my second memoir with recipes. I was born in Morocco, in Casablanca, so Minty and Minarets is about my life in Morocco and our home that we own in Morocco, Al Riyadh. But this Bittersweet fell into my lap just at the beginning of COVID. I discovered these documents in a little suitcase that my mother had hidden in her closet and that I found out after she died. Sorry, I always get choked up. So I have all the original documents, and I was compelled to start writing because when you find in a little suitcase my great-grandfather's war journal in French, which I translated, and two little notebooks filled with his wife's original family recipes, which I also translated from the French. So it was quite an endeavor. And when I started reading the journal, I thought, well, it's not really something I'm going to include in a cookbook, though what do you do with that kind of information? So the book is more than a cookbook. It's really 3 books in one. It's first of all a history of the Belle Époque, because my great-grandparents, Prosper and Blanche Lévin-et-Marc, who hail from Châlons-en-Champagne, which is a teeny little town adjoining Germany, 2 hours south of Strasbourg. And I knew my mother was born in Châlons. So I did a lot of research and I started translating my great-grandfather's journal daily. It relates the insidious occupations of the Germans in Alsace-Lorraine between April and December 1940, and it abruptly ends 1940, December 31. So there's probably some more journals that we never got, because I also have to mention that this suitcase from France arrived in Casablanca, where my grandparents were, the daughter of Prosper and Blanche. They were living in Morocco, therefore they were safe as Jews. And their parents refused to leave France because they were French. They happened to be Jewish, and my great-grandfather was an army surgeon at Verdun during World War I, and twice the recipient of the Légion d'honneur. I have all these original documents in French, which I will eventually donate to a library or to a museum. And so basing this, La Belle Époque, which is the end of the 1890s and beginning World War II, where my great-grandmother Blanche, my namesake, grew up as a privileged young woman. She was a musician. She had a life. And she married this Prosper, who went to medical school in Montpellier in the south. And they had, they were quite well known in the town. In fact, last May, I made it my mission to go to Châlons and to follow in my great-grandparents' footsteps. I was hosted by a local historian. It was an unbelievable experience. I saw everything that Prosper mentions in his journal. And I gave a talk to a library in Châlons-sur-Marne. French is my first language. 100 people came to the local library. And I had asked maybe some descendants, if they could find descendants, but there's nobody, I'm it. And so there's 1 American and 3 Canadians left. The Germans really did the job in Alsace-Lorraine, cleaning the cleaning the area of the Jews. And as I was testing the recipes, because I've tested 10 books or 11 or 12, it was quite a challenge because Blanche was really a baker. I have all the original recipes, and she was crazy about chocolate. So I got some savories and 11 chocolate cake recipes. And so I telephoned her wherever she may be, and I said, Blanche, there's no way I'm going to put 11 chocolate recipes in the book. So I do have 3, and all the recipes are traditional Alsatian and from the area around Chalon-sur-Marne, which I have to mention. It's called Chalon-en-Champagne now, changed the name because it's the heart of the Champagne region. So in my talks, and I gave presentations in person and on Zoom, I combine the 3, some history and the journal as well, and sometimes a very short culinary demonstrations, or my hosts prepare something from the book and I talk. And I'm going to do that in San Diego and around the United States. And it's a great book.
Place to stop, Kitty. Our 4 minutes is up. But Kitty has so much information and original documents, you can't believe it. So I encourage you to pick up her book, to schedule a visit with her. You won't be sorry. Thank you, Kitty. Next up is Jill Paul. And I see that some of you are typing in comments in the chat box, which is great, but some of you have it sent to panelists, and you might want to redo that to send to everyone so everyone can see your comments. Jill Paul, who is quite the good soul, because she is in Europe and it's way past midnight there, and she is joining us, and she didn't even go first, so she's been waiting patiently, and you must be exhausted. So thank you, Jill, for being with us. Jill Paul is the best-selling author of 12 historical novels, many of them about real women from the past whom she thinks have been marginalized or misjudged by historians. Her novels have reached the top of the USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and Toronto Globe and Mail. A Beautiful Rival, her newest book, reveals the unknown history of cosmetic titans Elizabeth Arden and Helena Rubinstein and their infamous rivalry. We can't wait to hear more. Welcome, Jill.
Oh, thank you so much, Susan. And thanks to everyone who's come along tonight. I don't know about you, but the presentations are amazing, and I absolutely have to rush out and buy all these books instantly. Anyway, my new novel, A Beautiful Rival, is not out until the 5th of September, in fact, but that's quite soon, 2 weeks away, I believe. It's about 2 formidable women who invented the modern beauty industry, Elizabeth Arden and Helena Rubinstein. They are the ones, if you've ever bought a jar of face cream or a product that says it will make you look younger or reverse the signs of aging, and I know I have, they are the ones responsible for this ethos that women have a duty to be beautiful. Helena once said, there's no such thing as an ugly woman, only lazy ones. Now, this is not what I particularly admired about them. What I really admire is that they started vast global empires from absolute scratch. They had no family money. They didn't have wealthy husbands. It was an era where there was no chance of women getting bank loans. They couldn't even open a bank account without their husband's permission. They just started from the ground up, worked really hard, load of grit and determination, and they did it. And you'd think maybe they could have been allies or friends, but instead they hated each other. They went out of their way to avoid bumping into each other anywhere. They wouldn't even refer to each other by name. They talked about that woman or the other one. And the rivalry started in 1915 when Helena decided to come to Manhattan and open a salon, which up till then Elizabeth had considered to be her territory. She was furious. And it began with just sniping at each other. They would plant negative stories in the press. They would sabotage each other's advertising campaigns. Then they went on to copying each other's new products, poaching staff from each other. And this is all quite sort of funny, and, you know, you can have a laugh at it. But in the 1930s, it got a whole lot darker as Helena's salons in Berlin and German-occupied territory were daubed with Jewish graffiti and then seized, while Elizabeth was dining with Nazis. So I'm not going to tell you anything else about what happens in it, because I'm really hoping you'll invite me along to your book groups. And I'm appearing live tonight just to demonstrate that although I'm in London in the UK, I can stay awake without yawning at this time of day. I'd love to chat to you about these two just eccentric, egocentric, admirable ogres of women, because they were all these qualities together. Elizabeth was a snob, which is never attractive. She was prone to bouncing her staff on a moment's notice, and then she'd forget the next day that she'd bounced them. But she was also a very generous philanthropist, a passionate lover of horses. So there's these two sides to her. With Helena, she was the worst mother and wife you can imagine. I mean, just one tiny anecdote. In the middle of a spat with her husband, she bought his favorite club in Paris where he used to meet all his friends and had it bulldozed. I swear you could not make that up. And that's the kind of woman she was in her personal relationships. But she also stood up very firmly against anti-Semitism. She rescued lots of Jews from Europe in the late 1930s, and she supported young artists and had an amazing art collection. So they're just complicated, multifaceted women who I believe were really key to shattering the glass ceiling and helping to support all the female entrepreneurs that came after them. I really hope you'll enjoy reading about them, and I guarantee you will never look at your jar of moisturizer in the same way again.
That sounds fabulous. Thank you, Jill. And thank you again for joining us so late or so early, depending on the way you look at it. As Simon mentioned in the chat box, I mean, he just had her at their book club last Thursday, and she's willing to do it no matter what time. I don't want to speak outside of my comfort zone, but I think she's pretty willing to meet with you, because she loves meeting American readers and she doesn't get a chance to do that much in Europe. So, and that also reminds me is that I wanted to let you know, I think many of you have heard that we are in the process of merging Adventures by the Book and Novel Network. We're ready to do that. We're just waiting for our web designer to finalize the details, which have taken a lot longer than we anticipated. But that being said, once we merge, we are going to have Adventures by the Book ambassadors. And one of those is Simon, who just commented about Jill's visit. He's an incredible reader and reviewer, and he's writing book reviews for us, but we're going to have others as well. So thank you for doing that, Simon, and we're glad you're here. Next up, we have Noelle Salazar. She was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, where she's been a Navy recruit, a medical assistant, an NFL cheerleader, and always a storyteller. If you're an NFL cheerleader, you need to be at our Superbook event cheering everything on. Her newest novel, The Roaring Days of Zora Lily, is about the discovery of a hidden label on a famous gown, which unearths the story of a talented young seamstress and her journey from the smoke-filled speakeasies of jazz-age Seattle to the costume houses of Hollywood. And for those of you in the San Diego or Southern California region, she will be in San Diego in person on October 11th doing a fun, I think it's a luncheon, don't quote me on that, but we're going to have a fun event with her. So welcome, Noelle.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is a pretty amazing audience. So yeah, my book is The Roaring Days of Zora Lily. And the story came to me in a different way from my other stories. I feel like my first two stories, the inspiration fell into my lap, and they were very much inspired by actual people. And this one is more inspired by a time in history, a place. And but what it really came down to was a name. And Zora Lily, it turned out, was my great-great-grandmother's name, which I didn't know until about 5 years ago. My aunt was doing an ancestry.com search and found this out. And I was a little shocked because it's such a glamorous and fun sounding name. And I can't believe it wasn't passed down in some way. I mean, if I had known, I'd probably have named my daughter that. But what was interesting to me is I knew the history of Zora Lily and her husband, but I didn't know their names. And they had come down from Canada in the early 1900s, and they moved to Seattle, and they lived in a logging camp with their 8 children. And they were part of the logging boom, which basically built Seattle, or rebuilt Seattle, because Seattle had existed before, and then there was a great fire in 1889. And so they had to rebuild on top of it. And you can actually do tours of underground Seattle, which is fun and creepy. You get little pins that say Rat Busters, so if that tells you anything. But yeah, I heard this name and I just decided that this name needed a story, and it's not the real Zora Lily story. This is completely, something I created. And so Zora in the story is a young 20-something woman who is a seamstress, and she's got 6 siblings, and they are a poverty-stricken family. They do have logging camp roots. And she has dreams for herself, and they're not like huge grand dreams, but she just wants better than what she's had. And so she, through tragedy, finds herself having to become the breadwinner of the family and ends up being a nanny for a wealthy family in Seattle. And that opens her world in so many different ways. Because now she's in this wealthy household and she's seeing how that works. And then her best friend works in a club, and the research was so much fun. And this ended up being sort of a love letter to the city of Seattle. Just the streets and the clubs and the club owners and the music and the musicians. It was just so much fun because I spent my early 20s in the city of Seattle. And so there's like this parallel that I got to, find in her story and in mine, and both of our kind of humble beginnings and all the doors that open up once you open up your world. And so it was intriguing. There were so many just little tidbits. Actually, when I started researching, they had just uncovered Speakeasy in Seattle, and they had like the old murals and the staircase with the little secret button. And so that was really, really exciting. And just finding out who the musicians were, the cultures of the clubs, it was different depending on who owned the club, if it was white owned or if it was owned by maybe a BIPOC person. The culture inside the club was different. And that was really intriguing to me. And I've just always found the 1920s intriguing period. It's such a small pocket of time where it's like everybody came out. It's post-pandemic, it's post a war, and everybody was just like trying to be who they wanted to be in kind of secret still. And then you had the 30s after that, where everybody became buttoned up again. So I just always found this like pocket of time, like so intriguing. But this is just a story of a young woman who is determined. She's determined. She gets knocked down many, many times. And it's a story of family. It's a story of friendship. There's a romance because I like to cover all my bases. But mostly it's a story about finding your place in the world, but not just finding your place in the world, but like creating your place in the world. And I think that's the most important message in this book, is that, you don't need to be happy where you are, but you need to create where you are and be happy in your creation. And I think as an artist, as a writer, it's just so important. I think we all think about like what our legacy is and what we're leaving behind and what we're teaching people through our art. And so, Zora very much has an artist's heart, and it was really fun to just get to explore that and write her journey. So thank you. I hope you will read.
How wonderful. What a great gift, Noelle. And my apologies to Amy and to Noelle and to all of you if I confused you and I got them out of order. Amy was supposed to go next. And so I'm sure you figured that out on your cheat sheet, but my apologies for confusing everybody. So next up will be Amy. Amy Runyon is a multi-published and international best-selling author of historical fiction. She's been nominated for a Rocky Mountain Fiction Writer of the Year award, 4 Colorado Book Awards. Her new book, A Bakery in Paris, is a captivating historical novel set in 19th century and post-World War II Paris, which follows 2 fierce women of the same family, generations apart, who find their futures lie in the 4 walls of a simple bakery in a tiny corner of Montmartre. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, thank you all for having me. This is such a lovely event. I know that I am already broke. My TBR budget is already spent for the next year based on this wonderful group of books. So I'm so grateful to be here. So A Bakery in Paris actually has a little bit of a fun origin story that I'll tell you. So I got the idea. I was, kicking around various ideas in early 2020, and we know what was happening then. And I was dating a historian at the time, which is a lot of fun, a great benefit if you're a historical fiction author. And, I knew I kind of wanted to move away from the World War II craze a bit. I've written several books in that era. And so I said, hey, I was kicking around, maybe I'm going to write something about the Gilded Age. And he said, well, Amy, you have a master's degree in French. Why don't you write about the Paris Commune? Because it still fits into a lot of what you do. And I Googled it, refreshed my memory from my grad school days. And yeah, the Paris Commune, I should do that. And the happy ending is that I married him. And we got the news that I got the offer for this book on our honeymoon. So this book is definitely a tribute to him, as well as to the two courageous women that are featured in the book. So again, it is a dual timeline. So we have Lisette in 1870 and 1871, and that period is the Paris Commune the siege of Paris and the Paris Commune. And so it's a period of great upheaval in Paris. And we hear tons about the French Revolution and how it was the end of the French monarchy. But in truth, the French monarchy was reestablished 12 years again after the revolution. And so in 1870, after a terrible defeat of the French forces by the Prussians or the Germans in Sedan, the people of Paris rose up and said, we want to govern ourselves. And that became known as the Paris Commune in 1871. And it was violently set down by the Versaillais. And we have a woman, Lisette, who comes from very, she comes from very easy circumstances. She lives in one of the best parts of Paris, in the Place des Vosges. And she becomes confronted with the reality of the way she was raised when she meets a National Guardsman. And she decides that she really doesn't feel that the way she's been brought up is the way she wants to continue to live her life. So she forsakes a life of luxury and a life of privilege to move into Montmartre, which was a very working class part of Paris. Nowadays, it's very, it's very bougie, very hipster. And she decides that she wants to be a part of this neighborhood. And to do that, she opens up a bakery, and she sells off an engagement ring, buys a bakery, and paints it dark green to match the ring that she sold, and creates this beautiful bakery in order to help feed the people of the neighborhood, because they were walking, a half an hour each way to buy bread. We have food deserts today, we have food deserts back then. And she was trying to do her part to help the neighborhood. And then generations later, her granddaughter Micheline is left. Her father died in the early days of World War II. Her mother goes missing, and she's left to raise her 8 and 12-year-old sisters at the age of 19. And she ends up going back to her roots and reopening the bakery to provide for her family. And whereas Lisette is given a tremendous amount of agency to figure out what her beliefs are, Micheline's quest is all about finding that agency in her own life, even though it seems like so many of her choices have been stripped away. And really, it is all about the importance of family, found family, and love. And of course, also about the importance of bread, which can't be overstated in the French diet, and glorious food. And there's lots of great recipes.
Thank you, Amy. A delicious book. Next up, we have Dr. Pooja Shah, is a philanthropist and visionary poet who shares her voice through written and spoken word, guided meditations, and teaching. Her book, For My Sister, is a heartfelt novel about the deep bond of twin sisters from India who lose their freedom and their irrepressible hope, love, and courage throughout. The story of girls rising up against all odds. It was recently a San Diego Fox 5 News book club pick and featured on Sony Entertainment Television as a must-read. Welcome, Pooja.
Thank you. Thanks you all for being here. I have written so many books down. I don't know if I'm going to get to all of these. I'm sure you all feel the same, but it feels so amazing to hear all these stories. So thank you to all the authors as well. My book description is in your little cheat sheet. I think this cheat sheet is phenomenal. I think every book club should have this. So thank you to Adventures by the Book, Susan. I'm not going to get into the actual plot line. I wanted to actually share something that you won't see in the book, which is a little bit of my journey writing this novel. I started this out as a short story a number of years ago. And this was pre-kids. You know, I'm a busy mom of 2 kids. I was overseas doing volunteer work in Uganda and girls' education with a girls' rights organization and for my healthcare career. And that's at the time I was opening up a clinic in a hospital there. And then after that, I went to India and I actually spent time working with children in the slums of a city my own mother grew up in. And when I came back, I had all these short stories. I mean, writing is how I process emotion, like many of us authors. And so I just kept pulling out this one called Amla and Asya, which is now titled For My Sister and the names of the girls in my book. And I couldn't put it down. I'd like stay up nights. I wanted to research. I was calling nonprofits for many years. I interviewed twin experts, and finally I had a manuscript, but I was busy. I was in a corporate public health career for the government. This was my passion. And it wasn't until the pandemic that I slowed down and I wasn't running around with my kids. I wasn't traveling for work. And then I just had to believe in myself and know that I could land a book deal. And one of the authors I really loved that I'd listened to and really got me into that mind space was Abraham Verghese. He's also a doctor turned fiction author. And so it was amazing to finally feel like I was starting a new chapter. And so that's kind of like Amla and Asya in a way. And so much of that happens, I think, when we write fiction. I want to tell you a little bit about these characters. I love falling in love with characters. And so the girls are very different. They're identical twins, and Asya is someone who follows the rules, and Amla is the one who breaks them. And the book is told in both their perspectives. I have a sister myself, so I loved building this relationship. The difference is, though, I learned when I, wrote it and went through it, is really this duality. I think that each and every one of us has this duality. We feel this kind of like a pull from different ways. And it's like the idea of society wanting us to follow rules as women, and then having, the idea that, well, maybe I wasn't born this way. Maybe I have other ideas for myself. And so this is exactly what Amla and Asya provide throughout the whole entire novel, this dual existence. I don't know if anyone saw the Barbie movie, but it reminds me of that message. So that's kind of, and as a vulnerable share, as a writer, that's what I learned about myself. I had spent years following the rules, in this very robust, wonderful healthcare career. And I thought, well, am I really going to follow my dream to be a writer? I mean, I have this wonderful, and I ended up doing it. A lot of that came from some of the guided meditation, and that's all present in the novel as well. And just lifting myself to understand that, well, this is where I'm going to land, and I'm telling a story that will inspire others to lift the girls who also deserve a life of choice. So I took the choice, and I'm glad I did, because now I'm sharing about my book with you all. For My Sister, I think if there's a theme that it really embodies is sisterhood. And yes, the topic is very heavy. It's about girls who are trafficked. They're torn apart the whole journey as if they find each other or not. I won't tell you if they do, but there's so much more to that. If you haven't been to India, my book takes you there. It's the richness of my culture, the vibrancy of fabrics, scents, foods, sounds, cities, yoga, meditation, spices. I threw in the word chai and lassi in here because I've been speaking at book clubs and everyone's asking for the recipes because the food in there is described in all these ways. So if you go to formysisterbook.com and under book clubs, you'll see I put a bunch of recipes in there. One of them is my grandmother's chai recipe. It is the best in the world, I will say that. And then the lassi. So there's another character in the book. I love this character. His name is Jay. He's a lassi wala. Wala means peddler. You can think of Slumdog Millionaire when you think of him. And he delivers lassi everywhere. And he is befriended by Asya, and he becomes a little brother to her. And it's just the most beautiful relationship. So you'll fall in love with that. There's also poetry in there. All throughout, Asya's poems are sprinkled. I grew up in New York City. I used to cut school to go to the New York Poetry Slam. Don't tell my immigrant parents that, but that's where I got all my inspiration for allowing words to dance from my soul. I believe that poetry is a raw expression of emotion, and it's the truth of really, if I can put it, that's like what remains when everything's stripped away. And so that's what Asya finds for herself, because that's all she has. And it's not just, to me, then a story of girls rising up from circumstance. It's It's what happens when you empower girls, when they can listen to their inner voices, when they can listen to what matters the most. And I guess, someone told me what was your, I've been working with all these nonprofits. Was that why you wrote this book? And to be honest, it's not. I just wrote this book because I used to read books like Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye and books that just changed my life. And the reason they did is because they got inside of my heart. And so that's why I wrote this book. I wanted to have mothers read it and feel what it means to, the importance of all this advocacy for girls. I wanted someone to read it and feel what it means and the importance of sisterhood and just really highlighting all of these themes that are present throughout everything. You can follow me on Instagram at PS Namaste, and my site www.formysisterbook.com actually has my animated book trailer, and that has my spoken word poetry, since I mentioned that. And then I'll do a little quick read. It's super short.
Oh, actually, we're out of time.
Are we? Okay.
Yes,
well,
so
you'll have to read it to get the read.
They have to read it and schedule you for a book club visit. Go to novelnetwork.com to do that, and you'll get the full feel of Pooja. And I love that, allowing words to dance to my soul. It's beautiful. Thank you, Pooja. Next up is Elizabeth Silver. She is the author of The Tincture of Time, a memoir of medical uncertainty, an Amazon Best Book of the Year, The Execution of Noah P. Singleton. Her work has been called masterful by the Wall Street Journal, has been published in 7 languages, and optioned for film. Her forthcoming novel, The Majority, is a riveting novel of love and friendship, motherhood and ambition, and one woman's fight to be a Supreme Court justice. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, and so my name again, Elizabeth L. Silver, and this is my 3rd book, my novel called The Majority. It just came out actually last month, and so I was just in San Diego last night at Warwick's, and so I was thinking of you since you're based in San Diego, and it was really lovely to be there. So The Majority is told as a fake memoir of a fictional first female Supreme Court Justice of America. And it tells the story of Sylvia Olin Bernstein, the contemptuous SOB, on her rise to power to what I believe is really the closest thing that we have to a modern throne, the Supreme Court. So the book is framed with the perspective of an 80-something-year-old justice seeing her last days and wanting to really set the record straight. She says, "Half of the United States is waiting for me to die, while the other half stands by, candles in hand, praying for me to hang on. At least that's what they tell me. At least that's what they want. But people never really want what they think they want." So begins Sylvia's story that she's telling at long last over 4 central timeframes in her life. So framed as this memoir, she focuses on the time in 1949 when she's 12 years old and her mother dies, and a cousin who survived the Holocaust comes to live with them and really changes her life and her perspective and her trajectory. And then again, we meet her again in the early 1960s when she's one of the 9 women at Harvard Law. And then again in 1974, when we follow her as a young mother as she's building her career. And then ultimately in 1986, when she's appointed to the court and all of the baggage and the history catches up with her, kind of threatening to expose her as she's about to be appointed to this modern throne. But taking a step back, I wanted to talk a little bit about why I even chose to write this book. There have been 116 Supreme Court justices in the United States since its inception in 1789, but only 6 have been women. And when I began writing this book, The Majority, there had been only 4. The Honorable Ruth Bader Ginsburg was still alive and well and adjudicating cases. And I'd always idolized her as somebody who could, cross bridges in friendship and the law. And I related to her very subtle, nuanced form of activism. She wasn't outside necessarily, she was inside writing and arguing in courts of law. But still, despite my deep interest and my admiration, and despite my own legal education, she and the other female Supremes felt like figures of fantasy to me. They were kind of out of reach, and I was curious about them, and I wanted to know about their actual lives. I wanted to know about their paths to power, but not the well-known historical biographies we're always given in books and films about powerful women. I wanted to know about the dirty parts, the ugly parts, the beautiful parts, the parts that are left on the bathroom floor, the stories of the arguments with their children and their partners. I wanted to hear about their friendships and their mentors and the sacrifices that they made and the nuance that's so often missed when we consider ambitious women in history. So literature and film, they often give the most real estate to the women and who speak the loudest. But what about the women who work silently to change the world, but doing so without any fanfare? And it was with all that in mind that I started this novel and created this new character, Sylvia Olin Bernstein. So the majority, it's about ambition and motherhood, female friendship and mentors and mothers and daughters and love and marriage, and of course the changing face of some of our most revered institutions. But ultimately it asks this question of what can we learn when we remove the robe and start to get to know the woman underneath? What has it been like for women like RBG and like Sandra Day O'Connor and like my character Sylvia to live and work in a world where they as women make up the majority of the population, but the minority in power? And as Sylvia says, history is only as good as the historians, and I'm no longer trusting them to tell my story. So her story is now for all of you wonderful readers and book lovers, and I'm so thrilled and excited that the book just hit the shelves, and it's such a joy to be able to meet with book clubs. It's one of my absolute favorite things. I'm one of those extroverted writers, and so I absolutely love to kind of share the book with you. And so I think that relationship between a book and its reader is one of the most intimate, beautiful things out there, and I look forward to having a chance to meet with all of you. So I hope you enjoy the book. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We definitely will. And to schedule a visit with Elizabeth or any of our authors tonight, you can visit novelnetwork.com. And also wanted to give a shout out to Janice Robinson Daly, who's in the audience tonight, but she is one of our Novel Network authors and hugely supportive of Novel Network and our Novel Network authors and events. She's in the book club with Simon, and they do a great job promoting authors and books. So thank you guys. And thank you, Elizabeth. Next up, we have Catherine St. John, who also could not be with us last minute, so she sent in a recording, and I'm going to have Debbie cue that up, please.
Catherine St. John, and I'm the author of The Vicious Circle, a twisty, escapist thriller set deep in the Mexican jungle. This one's a really fun one, I think, for book clubs or for buddy reads, because it deals a lot with themes of self-confidence and how that impacts our decision-making ability, and also with the very human need to belong and how far we'll go for acceptance. These are, of course, things that are great to talk about in a group setting. We follow Sveta, who is 30 and living in New York, and her life is kind of falling apart when the book starts. Her engagement is on the rocks when she gets a phone call that her estranged Uncle Paul has suddenly died, leaving her his entire estate, which is a lot because he was a famous self-help author until a couple of years ago when a scandal sent him to live in the Mexican jungle with about 100 of his followers. Shocked and confused, Sveta travels to Mexico to bid him farewell and also to see his grieving widow, Callie, who by all accounts should have inherited his estate. When she gets to the airport in Mexico City, she is not happy to find that the executor of Paul's will, who happens to be a guy she had a memorable one-night stand with many years ago and who later ghosted her, is there to meet her. He is worried about her safety. So he goes with her on a plane and a boat and a helicopter to get deep into the Mexican jungle. When they arrive at Xanadu, they find this gorgeous place with beautiful tumbling gardens, a big villa, jaguars wandering around that seem to be tame. Everyone is very welcoming, including, surprisingly, under the circumstances, Callie, who is very kind and charismatic, if not entirely forthcoming about the circumstances surrounding her husband's death. It's not until a problem with the helicopter strands Lucas and Sveta at Xanadu that Sveta really starts to see the cracks in the facade of this seeming paradise. As the mystery around her uncle's death deepens, she starts to understand that the belief system that she at first thought was benign is actually quite disturbing, and the power that Callie wields in this place is uncontrolled. She realizes that she's going to have to rely on herself and her wits if she wants to make it out alive. I really think that this is a great read for the fall because it's got lots of atmosphere. There's some Gothic elements, cult vibes, all leading up to a shocking conclusion. I wouldn't call this a cult book because it deals more with the need to belong than it does with the inner workings of a cult. So whether or not you're fascinated by cults, I think that you will enjoy this book either way. You know, I really like to put characters take regular people and put them in extraordinary circumstances that challenge them and make them face their demons just as they are facing outside circumstances as well, making that internal struggle external. So what that means in this book is that what is for Sveta a journey of self-confidence is for the reader a twisty, fast-paced thrill ride. The Vicious Circle paperback is out on October the 10th. The hardcover is already out, so if you want to get started, you can. I hope that you enjoy the book. Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Catherine. We missed having you here, but okay, thank you. We missed having you here, Catherine, but glad you were able to send in a video for us. Sounds fascinating. Next up, we have Carol Vanden Hende, is the award-winning author of the Goodbye Orchid series, which won 20+ literary awards, including the American Fiction Award, among others. Always Orchid, the riveting third book in the Goodbye Orchid contemporary fiction series, was selected by the Pulpwood Queen's 2024 Book of the Month, congratulations, and is, according to Kirkus Reviews, an engrossing, inspiring depiction of traumatized individuals growing amidst challenges. Welcome, Carol.
Thanks so much, Susan. So great to see everyone. It's such an honor to be among these lovely authors and with this audience. Happy Thursday to everyone. As Susan said, I am Carol Vanden Hende, the author of the Goodbye Orchid series. By day, I'm actually a marketer, strategist, and executive at Mars Incorporated. And I mention that because if you come to any of my in-person launch events that are coming up in October, you just might be able to enjoy some custom M&Ms in the colors of the Orchid series covers. And also by way of introduction, I'm a mom to twins, as Susan mentioned, one of whom has special needs. And I share that because that's really the origin story of what started me writing. Finding ways to support our son with special needs is really what sparked me to begin writing. And during that time, I was so inspired by combat wounded veterans, honestly, who showed us such strength and resilience to get back to good. And that's what sparked the entire series. So tonight, you know, we're here to talk about the explosive, exciting finale to the trilogy, Always Orchid. Now, the series, you can either read the whole series or they are written as standalone. And so you can jump right in and read Always Orchid and you will understand the full story. And in fact, I'll go ahead and introduce you a bit to each of the characters, because in this series, you will meet half Asian Orchid Paige. She is the protagonist in Orchid Blooming. She is half Asian, just like my twins are. And that is important because as a child, she did experience tragedy. She lost her parents at a young age. That is something I actually can relate to myself personally, and is something I put into the story. As a result now, as an adult, what she wants more than anything is to win a work trip to China to feel closer to the memory of her mother. So it's an incredibly emotional journey for her to really find herself. Along the way, she needs to gain more advertising experience to win this trip. And so she meets the handsome head of an ad agency. And in Goodbye Orchid, you'd actually see an accident befalls him right at the beginning of the story that changes him forever. And so these two events coming together really create all of the ingredients for what's in Always Orchid, because the two of them, as they really fall for each other and, fall deeply in love and find that they are soulmates, have the biggest conflict of their lives. On the one hand, Phoenix, who has saved a homeless man's life and has, experienced a disabling accident really as a result of saving that homeless man's life, he feels so protective of Orchid because he knows that given the tragedy she had as a child, that she is sensitive to images of trauma. And so when he sees what's happened to himself, he realizes he's become the very image of trauma that will trigger her. So in order to protect her, what might he need to do, including perhaps protecting her from himself? And yet, on the other hand, Orchid feels that she has really a goal in life to help show Phoenix that he is more than whole, no matter what he thinks he might be missing. And so this series and Always Orchid really focus on these themes of disability advocacy, forgiveness, redemption. If you've liked books like Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin or Fault in Our Stars by John Green, you will love the series. You will love Always Orchid. And I am so proud, because the series is inspired by combat wounded veterans, that multiple Purple Heart decorated veterans have endorsed and really loved this series. One perhaps you may have seen if you ever watched Dancing with the Stars. Noah Galloway is a gentleman who lost an arm and a leg in Iraq. And he talks about how this series and Always Orchid really represent the strength of the human spirit. And that makes me incredibly proud. I'll just end by sharing two things. One, I'd love to share with you the opening sentence to Always Orchid. And this is in Orchid's point of view.
We're actually out of time, Carol. I hate to interrupt you, but you know what that means. They have to schedule a book club visit with you.
That's right.
Hear that
Sounds
in
good.
person. So thank you for that interesting presentation. We're looking forward to having everyone read your book. Next up, we have Michelle Webster-Hine, and I just want to say we only have 3 more authors left. We will give away prizes at the end, and you do have to be present to win. We don't want to penalize anybody because their last name starts with W and they're at the end of the presentation. So stay with us. There's only 3 more presentations, and you won't want to miss any of them. Michelle Webster-Hine and her family work a small homestead in the southern Michigan countryside where she was born and raised. She has also been published in Modern Farmer and Lit Hub, among many other places. Out of Esau, her debut novel, follows the story of a woman questioning her marriage who encounters the steadfast pastor of her small town, and they are both forced to reconsider their pasts, their faith, and their future. Tell us more, Michelle.
Hi, everybody. So this is Out of Esau. This is my debut novel. And the basic premise is, I'm going to make this short because I know we're running short on time. It's set in a small town, which is a fictionalized version of the rural Michigan village I grew up in and still live close to. There is a pastor at this Baptist church who is of Native American descent, and he doesn't really fit in this small town. And this woman who is seeking the strength to stay true to her increasingly volatile husband starts to attend his church. The two of them meet, and everyone's lives begin to unravel. So this is a story that's told from 5 perspectives. So it's one of the switching perspectives books, which I always think is fun because you get to see one complicated reality from multiple points of view. It's the pastor, the woman, the abusive husband, their eldest child, and the pastor's mother. He was taken away from his mother when he was 8 years old. It is a good read if you like small town settings, if you like reads about marriage, if you like women's fiction, character-driven fiction, literary page turners, various points of view. My publisher and I have put together a really great reader's guide, which is available on my website, michellewebsterhine.com, and it's just in the book clubs tab. And the book really brings up some very complicated questions about race, faith, what it means to be an outsider, and what we have the power to change, especially in middle age. So I love to Zoom into book groups free of charge. And another little dangle is that I just finished the sequel to this book, and it's 2 of the characters further on down the road. So that's kind of a fun thing to look forward to. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And it's been wonderful to hear about all of these books. Now my to-read list is even longer. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Next up, we have Karen White, the New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of, I always hesitate to say how many books because every time I announce how many New York Times books she has, then she's got more even. Now I have 34. Where are you at, Karen?
34 is correct. That,
oh,
as far as
wow,
I know.
okay.
Yeah, so we're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Including the Trad Street series, The Last Night in London, Dreams of Falling, The Night the Lights Went Out, Flight Patterns, The Sound of Glass, and A Long Time Gone. In her recent book, The House on Britannia, a woman is haunted both literally and figuratively by ghosts of the past in her second novel of the Royal Street series. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for having me. Wow, so many great books. Seriously, I'm so excited. I've been doodling a little bit. Well, that's why I turned my video off because yeah, this is very exciting to be here. Thank you. And thank you to all the book clubs, librarians, everybody who's tuned in tonight. And thank you, Susan, for hosting this because this is a great way to get authors and books into the hands of readers who might not have heard of us before. So thank you for that. So yes, The House on Britannia is my 34th novel. I'm mostly known for my Gritlit books, my Southern women's fiction books. And despite the twisty plots of my series books, of which this is number 2, this is still very much a character-driven book. It's a character-driven series with a focus on family and friendship. However, these books have a little extra and not just the twisty plot. So I've typed up my little presentation so I don't go on and on and on. So here goes. As Susan said, a woman is haunted both literally and figuratively by ghosts of the past in the second novel of the Royal Street series. My protagonist is 26-year-old Nola Trenham. After a bumpy road to adulthood, she has moved to New Orleans to restart her life. Not the first choice of recovering alcoholics such as Nola, but she's determined to prove herself and to her family back in Charleston that she has conquered her demons. Like many people, when they move to a new city, the first thing Nola does is buy a home, but the only house she can afford is a fixer-upper Creole cottage just one breath away from a wrecking ball. Despite its dilapidated state, Nola feels that the house has chosen her to save it. She's not psychic herself, but she spent enough of time around people who are to know when ghosts are present, and there are definitely a few lingering spirits in her new home. Something or someone is keeping them tethered to this world, and not all of them are benign. With the sudden return of Sunny Ryan, the long-lost sister of Nola's sometime nemesis, Beau Ryan, Nola has plenty to distract her from her ghostly housemates, especially when the tempting yet firmly unavailable Beau, wanting to mete out justice to those he blames for Sunny's kidnapping, asks Nola for a favor that threatens to derail her hard-won recovery. Torn between helping Beau and protecting herself, Nola doesn't realize until it's almost too late why the ghosts are haunting her house. A startling revelation that will throw her and Beau together to fight a common enemy. Assuming Nola can get Beau to listen to what the spirits are trying to tell him, because ignoring them could prove to be a fatal mistake. With an eclectic cast of characters, including Nola's roommate, the more southern than pecan pie Jolene McKenna, whose words of wisdom are as peculiar as they are profound, such as, just goes to show that if it has tires or testicles, it's bound to cause you trouble. And there's a difference between dressing casual and looking like something the dog keeps under the porch. Nola's world is split between house renovations, navigating her not quite platonic relationship with Beau, and trying to solve a decades-old murder that one of the ghosts will stop at nothing to keep hidden. Although this series is a spin-off of my popular Trad Street series, it isn't necessary for readers to have read the first series or even the first book in the new one, The Shop on Royal Street, to be able to jump right into The House on Britannia and know what's going on. Kirkus Review says, an exciting psychic mystery. And from New York Times bestselling author Simone St. James, expertly packed with suspense and family secrets and soaked in New Orleans atmosphere, The House on Britannia is Karen White at her best. This twisty, satisfying tale will keep readers up far too late. I'm currently working on book number 3, which will be published in 2025, and I'm contracted for one more after that. However, since Nola is only 26, I can torture her for years to come, so there's room for more than 4 books in this series. Thank you.
That's fabulous. And clearly you have a huge fan base, many of her who are in the audience and typing chats messages to you. But for those of you who are fans or who have not met her and should be fans, she will, as a reminder, be at Superbook this year on February 18th in San Diego. I see that tickets are already selling based on our announcement of this event. So first 50 seats are early bird pricing. Get yours early. You won't want to miss a chance to miss her and all of Team W and all of our authors who will be appearing. And last but not least, before we go to our giveaways, is Tracy Anderson Wood, who also could not be with us tonight and sent in a video. So Debbie, you want to cue up Tracy's video?
Hi, I'm Tracy Anderson Wood, and I'm about to do one of the most exciting things for an author. My new book is here. So let's open her up. Here it is. Ready? It's The President's Wife. Isn't it gorgeous? There are some very special things on this cover. Everything on the cover has very special significance. So I'll hope you read the story and you'll find out what that significance is. So I like to compare my books to my children. Each one is unique. Each one is loaded with character and surprises. And they all take years of preparation and blood and sweat and tears. But in the end, they're worth it. So The President's Wife joins my first 2 novels. The first one being The Engineer's Wife, an international and USA bestseller. And The Warners, #1 in its Amazon categories. Very, very proud of them. Each one of my stories tell the story or focus on a woman in history that did amazing things that we all should know about, but are lost in time. So I'd like to explore those women and see how their stories affect things that are happening today. So my book baby, President's Wife, releases August 15th, and I hope you will pick it up and enjoy it and let me know. I'd like to thank my editor, Anna Michaels, and my agent, Lucy Cleland, for all their help and inspiration, and the entire team at Source Books, who have and continue to make all my author dreams come true. So a little more on The President's Wife. It's the story of Edith Bowling Wilson, who's the second wife of Woodrow Wilson. And after a whirlwind romance, they got married in December of 1915, towards the end of his first term in presidency. Edith very quickly became a valued member and confidant of Woodrow Wilson. He trusted her with top secret information. And Woodrow Wilson actually preferred his close friends and family members for advice rather than his own administration and cabinet that he himself appointed. So very, very interesting presidency to learn about. And although Edith actually had very little formal schooling, but she was bright and vivacious, and she was well loved by the people. She set an important example during World War I in ways to get through the horror of it. But Woodrow Wilson was not a well man. As his health failed, Edith and two conspirators began to hide his condition from the public, and they began to actually act in his stead. So this story is about their relationship, about the presidency, and about what happens when untold things happen, and we have no basis to make decisions on what should happen. So it's very, I think, relevant to today.
Thank you, Tracy. And we cut off the video because the audio was so garbled, it was difficult to hear. So you can learn more about Tracy on her website at the link in the chat box. And we'll be also sending links out after the event. So that concludes our 16 author presentation. I want to thank all of our authors. We're going to be doing the giveaway in just a moment, but I want you to indulge me as I thank all of our authors because they gave up an hour and a half of their time, sometimes as far away as Europe and way past midnight to join us. They're all fabulous writers. They're all intriguing and interesting. They're all looking forward to meeting with you and your book clubs and having you read their books. This is a chance for you to learn more about them. I hope you took copious notes in our cheat sheet. You can order their books on our website, adventuresbythebook.com. We'll ship them out along with a signed book plate, and in some instances, an original signed copy if we have those available. So make sure to do that. And also a reminder of some of our upcoming events. For those of you who are writers, aspiring writers, new writers, even seasoned writers, we are doing a writing retreat in Aspendale, California. It's in the Eastern Sierras. We have 2 spaces left. We're doing it in October during aspen season. It's a community that's surrounded by aspen trees. It's a beautiful place to write. And author and Novel Network author Amy Wallen is going to be leading that retreat. So send me your email if you have more information, if you want more information on that. And also I'm going to announce really early, we haven't finalized this, but next year, starting in January, we are going to do our first ever year-long writing mentorship program. And that's going to involve a lot of Novel Network authors who are volunteering to be your mentor for the year, to help you write your book, answer all your questions about what the process is like. It's a really valuable tool. At the end of the year, you're going to have a chance. We're going to help you develop your elevator pitch. And then at the last session of the year, we're going to invite 3 publishers who are going to listen to your pitch your book. It's a really amazing opportunity. So we hope that you join us for that once we announce it. So I think now it's time for the giveaways. We have 10 authors who generously volunteered to donate a book, and you have to be present to win. So I'm going to pick from the people who were in attendance. And if I can ask Debbie and Sarah behind the scenes to both take notes between the 2 of you, we won't forget anybody of who I call as winners. The first person is Barbara Montejo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Barbara, but she is winner number 1. And we will email you tomorrow and get your information about where to send the books. Next, we have, Connie Dortch. I'm writing that down as well. Winner number 2. Congratulations, Connie. Next, we have Debbie Skinner. And if I announce you and you live in Canada, I'm sorry that there's only 1 winner in Canada because we can't ship books to Canada anymore. But Carol Vanden Hende did give an electronic book format, so we can send that to a winner in Canada. But Debbie Skinner is winner number 3. And next up we have, all right, if I pronounce it right, Diana Miracle. Diana Miracle, you're winner number 4. Congratulations. Next, we have Irene Middlemass. Irene Middlemass is winner number 5. Okay, and then next up we have Joan Merritt. Joan Merritt is winner number 6. Congratulations, Joan. And we've got 4 more. We have Judy LeDuc. Judy LeDuc, congratulations, writing your name down. Okay. Simon, you are a winner of the electronic book to go to Canada. Congratulations, Simon. And then we have Lisa De Silva. Lisa De Silva is winner number 9. And we have one more lucky winner. Who will it be? It will be Mary Beth Enos. Mary Beth Enos is winner number 10. So once again, I want to thank all of the readers who participated today. It was really a fun event. You got to hear some really fabulous authors. Hope you learned something new and put some books on your to be read list. And I hope that you invite some of these authors to your next book club or library event. They're all excited to meet with you and to do that. A special thank you to Debbie and Sarah behind the scenes for helping put all this together, because they do all the work while I just get to introduce the authors. And thanks to all 16 of our authors, including the 3 who were in video appearance. You guys are fabulous. We admire what you do. You're incredibly talented. You're gracious to give of your time to meet us here tonight, but also to meet with book clubs and take your time to do that. And we hope that readers will take advantage of that because these authors are incredible. And that's it for this time. So we hope to see you next time. Until next time, what is your next adventure by the book going to be? Good night, everybody.